Welcome to Sisters in Crime Australia and Murder Mondays, when authors talk about their crime craft. I'm Karina Kilmore, a debut crime writer, a journalist and a national convener for Sisters in Crime, and we've been celebrating women's crime writing since 1991. Before I introduce Susan Hurley, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. Susan, welcome and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Karina. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Congratulations again on your recent 2020 Davitt Award for Best Debut Crime Book.
Thank you. It was a real thrill. And here it is. Still, oh, there it is.
Fantastic. How gorgeous. Susan, you've hit the crime writing scene a bit from left field. You studied pharmacy, then trained as an epidemiologist, a health economist and a statistician. Although you have written a lot during your health sector career, including for science and medical publications and journals such as The Lancet. In 2017, you were shortlisted for the Peter Carey Short Story Award, and lucky for us, you turned to crime. And not only was your debut crime novel shortlisted for the Davitt Awards for Best Debut, but also the Best Overall Novel. Susan, before we get to the questions, can you please give us your elevator pitch for your award-winning novel, 8 Lives?
So 8 Lives is a medical thriller. A brilliant medical researcher invents a potential blockbuster drug, but then he dies in mysterious circumstances. How did he die? Why did he die? And who will take the blame?
Fantastic.
It's a 2-floor elevator pitch.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's get to our questions.
Okay.
Who's your favourite crime fiction character?
Probably Armand Gamache, who is Louise Penny's character. Louise Penny has been writing Inspector Gamache books for 10 or 15 years. He is a detective with the Sûreté in Montreal, and he's a really delightful character. Crime detectives are often flawed in crime novels, but he's not flawed. He is a very comforting character. And his settings in Louise Penny's novels are really fascinating. I love Canada, so that's one of the attractions.
Who are your literary inspirations?
So many. One of the inspirations for 8 Lives was Jodi Picoult, her book, My Sister's Keeper, which was written from multiple points of view. And that was grounded around, a medical dilemma, which becomes a human dilemma. A family with a daughter who has leukemia decide that they will have another daughter genetically engineered to provide bone marrow for their ill daughter. And you read a lot about it, that Jodi Picoult includes a lot about that process, but more importantly, how it affects the family.
Yep. So. Why is crime so appealing as a genre?
I don't really know. In terms of reading it, I think it can take you out of your own comfort zone, out of your own world very effectively, which is not always the case with relationship dramas, so to speak.
Yep.
So fortunately for most people, the crime that's the sort of scenarios that are described in crime novels are beyond their experience. So I'm guessing that's why they're appealing.
What's your top writing tip and what's your top self-editing tip?
Well, my top writing tip is write is a verb. So basically what that means is turn up for work. If you don't get something down on paper or on the screen, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
My top editing tip would be do what I say, not what I did in writing 8 Lives. And what I say is just keep writing, don't keep going back and finessing what you've done. Get to the end and then go back.
Yeah, terrific.
I say that because I spent a lot of time not doing what I said, and really you need to get to the end and know how it's all going to work out before you start fine-tuning what you've already written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How important is place in your writing?
I don't think it's very important to me. I think it's more about the interactions between people, which could be happening anywhere. My novel could have been set in the US, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of a profile do you do for each character before you write?
As I'm writing, what I did was created a timeline, a sort of potted life story, a history for that character in terms of the key elements of the story. So, and I found that was very useful in terms of pulling it all together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What tips have you got for debut writers?
Look, I think it's all very different from what you imagine, and just enjoy the good parts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best way to dig yourself out of a bad plot hole?
I guess plan ahead so that there aren't too many holes. I'm a great outliner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find it very useful to know where I'm heading. I have heard of writers who start a book and don't know how it's going to end, don't know who done it. All kudos to them, but that's not me.
Yeah. How much of you is in one of your characters?
Look, I think there's a bit of me in probably all of my characters, but it's not an autobiography, it's not autofiction, so I am none of them. There are no direct scenes from my life, but there are little snippets that I've reworked in various ways. So
yeah, lovely.
It's an exercise in imagination more than an exercise in writing in memoir.
Yeah. How many drafts do you write before handing it in?
Well, I think when I started sort of a new version of it, I'd create a new folder, and I think I had 11 folders by the time it went to the publisher. So they weren't all complete drafts, but yeah, I'd had 11 goes at it.
Yeah, 11 goes. Well, I think you've almost answered this one. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm very much a plotter.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, I have an outline, I plot it, I have the stories that I develop of the characters' lives, but as I write, things change.
Mm-hmm.
And the outline that I had, parts of it don't make sense, so I wouldn't say they're quite holes, but I spent a lot of time going back and putting little bits in so that parts of the novel further down the track made sense.
Yeah. Do you start with the plot or the character or something else?
Well, a bit of both. So I always, when I started writing Eight Lives, I had the core of the plot in my mind, and I knew that the character, who's called Dr. David Tran, was going to die. And I always had him in my mind. He is a Vietnamese refugee, made good. He's become a brilliant medical researcher, and so he was the core of the novel. I always had him in mind, and I also had Miles, who is his self-confessed slacker friend. I always had Rosa, the scientist who was struggling to speak truth to power, so to speak. Yeah. And I always had Lee, David's sister, in mind. Some of the other characters, and I guess I always had Foxy in mind too. He's the bad corporate guy.
Yeah.
So both.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about writing a novel?
I don't know what the hardest part is. I think so my novel, I think, is about 85,000 words. So any project where you're getting 85,000 words down on paper and wanting them to make sense is hard. I think it's not so much the writing. I think for me, it was putting it out in the world that was harder, and anticipating what people would think about it. And then, just making that leap was the hard part.
Yeah. And our last question for today, thank you, Susan, is how would you get away with murder? You're in the perfect background to tell us this.
Well, I haven't thought about that question, Karina.
Of course not.
But what I will say is that there is a murder in Eight Lives, and I got in touch with a friend of mine who's a doctor, and I won't name them, and I'll just say them, and asked them, I just gave them the setup that I wanted, the parameters of the murder, and asked them what they would use. And they gave me the answer pretty quickly, I have to say. So I guess, in the unlikely event that I wanted to get away with murder, I would consult my friend again.
Consult the experts.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Get
Susan,
the experts on the case.
Susan, thanks very much for being with us today on Murder Mondays, and congratulations again on your award-winning novel, 8 Lives.
Thanks, Karina.